Hello. I'm coming to you again from 1770 today. It's really windy today. I've got people walking past me looking like I'm a lunatic talking to myself, broadcasting from the middle of this lovely park. So if you could just let me know, Dale, can you hear me all right, or is it too windy? I did bring my great big microphone, so I'm hoping that that's going to cut out most of the background noise. It's just the wind picks up every now and then, and it does seem pretty blowy out here to me, but hopefully not to you. So today we are talking about the engagement zone, and this is a term that I use a lot, and I just want to explain what it means, why it's important, and how to get your horse into the engagement zone, why you should, and how to recognize when it's in the engagement zone, what that will do for you and your training, and how to recognize when it's not in the engagement zone. And also I want to show you what I've found to be the easiest way to get your horse there. And so basically every horse has a natural emotional level. So let's say you've got just your average horse. Most of our horses are pretty normal sort of horses, and you look at them in the paddock and they're neither running around like lunatics or sleeping. They're just grazing. They're perfectly happy horses. And their natural emotional level, if we were to judge it out of 100, we might say it was a 50, to 50 out of 100. And then you might have a more sort of vigilant horse that does get a little bit nervous, doesn't like the wind perhaps. And in the paddock, you look at that horse and you compare it to the other horses, and you might say, oh, that horse is like a 60 out of 100. So they're all a bit different. Then you've got, the little cob that's sleeping most of the time and just terribly relaxed, and it might be a 45 out of 100 naturally. Then, of course, when we take these horses in and we start handling them or we ride them, their emotional level increases. Okay, so what we need to discover is how much of an increase in that emotional level is optimal for training and learning. So, obviously the horse that's napping in the paddock and is a 40 or a 45 is not going to be learning anything. And the horse that's tearing around the paddock and is a 75 is also not going to be learning anything. So we need to find that nice emotional level where the horse is more aroused or emotional than it would be if it were just standing in the paddock, but not so aroused as to be nervous. So there is a place in there, and that place I call the engagement zone. So that's what we're looking for. So what I have found, and we'll discuss that during this webinar, is that to get your horse into the engagement zone, you need to increase its emotional level. And I'm judging that by heart rate variability, perhaps eye temperature, how the horse is standing. So, the more upright the horse is, the more emotional it is. The higher the tail is, the more emotional it is. There's various cues the horse will give you to tell you how emotional it is. You don't have to take its heart rate. That's the quickest and easiest way to find out, of course. But I'll discuss an experiment that I did, which gives us a fairly good idea of how much we need to raise it. And what I've found is that it's not very much. It's sort of between 10 and 20%, an average of sort of 15 or 16% above resting, that the horse is emotional enough to be engaged and in the engagement zone, and therefore sort of learning optimally. So that's not a huge amount. So how do we recognize it, really, is the first question. I find, because we don't all wear heart rate monitors all the time on our horses, so I found the easiest way is actually head elevation. That will give you quite a lot of information about how emotional your horse is or how aroused your horse is. And if you just keep an eye on your horse, and I've been through this with you guys before, when you look at video of a horse during a lesson, what you'll find is the head elevation starts here and you start interacting with the horse, it goes up, and then it actually comes down and it will settle in a nice place down here somewhere. And that's exactly the pattern you want, because what happens is that the emotional level increases, and then the horse starts to understand what you're doing, or starts to respond correctly, and the emotional level stays the same then. And that's when the horse is in that engagement zone. But unfortunately, it has to go up. You can't, if your horse is a 40 and you want to raise that by 10 or 20%, so you need to get it up to a 50 or a 55, then you have to increase it. And the best way to do that is to start doing something with the horse. And so this is what I found with the experiment, which we'll get onto in a moment. So the reason it's so important to have your horse in this engagement zone is that if it isn't, it's probably not learning. And we've all seen that in various situations. If you take, for example, the road to the horse, or the way of the horse, where they have the horses in the round pen and they run them around, they break them in. They have them going under saddle in 3 to 8 hours, depending on what country you're in and which competition it is. Now, these horses aren't in the engagement zone because they've gone from normal 50 horses to 80, and they pretty much stay there the entire time. So they're not actually taking the information in. So if you bought a horse from one of those competitions, you would not want to get on and ride it the next day, because that horse hasn't actually taken it in. That horse has probably been sort of worked into exhaustion, and it's done it because it had no choice, but to be ridden. It's unfair to put a horse in that situation. You can't expect a horse that is that high emotionally to be learning, to be engaging with the lesson, and to take it on. You also can't expect a horse to take on that sort of amount of information in that time. So, that's a horse that's not in the engagement zone. That's the horse that's being forced into training and doing something, forced into performing, but it's not a horse that's learning optimally at all. The same thing happens with when you don't increase the emotional level at all. I remember going to a yard in the UK once, and there was a woman there. I was there for a couple of hours because I was doing a couple of lessons, and she must have, for an hour and a half, had this pony, and she had one of those carrot stick things, and she's flicking it over the pony. The pony was tied up in the yard to the stable, and an hour and a half she did the same exercise to this pony, who was asleep for most of the time. So, the pony knew the exercise. The pony wasn't scared of the stick. The pony was completely habituated to the stick. So she just wasted an hour and a half of her time that she could have been actually engaging the pony and having a bit of fun with it and teaching it something useful. So again, the emotional level's too low, so the pony's not learning. If the pony had been terrified of the stick, good for her for spending a whole hour and a half on that lesson and getting the pony habituated to the stick. And sadly, that wasn't the case, because that pony's emotional level never increased. So those are the two, too high and too low, and neither is any good. You need to bring this one down and raise this one up, and get them both into that engagement zone. So I often liken it to a classroom. We've all been at school or at university, and you can remember those teachers. You can remember the really boring teachers that talk like this and a monotone and was so dull, and you spent your entire time looking out the window just hoping it would finish, and you weren't engaged with the lesson and you didn't learn anything. And then there were those teachers that screamed and yelled and carried on and told you had to do it or you get detention. And again, you spent the whole time terrified. So again, you weren't learning because you were too scared. You were worried about getting detention. You were worried about getting into trouble. And in those two situations, you've wasted that 1 hour lesson. Whereas there were also those teachers that were so engaging, and they'd come in, they'd tell a good story, and they'd ask you your opinion, and you'd talk and you'd discuss it, and everybody would be involved. And yes, you're more emotional than you were when you were staring out the window, but you're not so emotional because you're scared. And that's what we're finding. That's the teacher we need to be for our horses. That's the teacher I always imagine. Every time I go out to teach a lesson, I imagine myself as being that teacher, the one that is engaging and fun and makes it interesting. Because, I always say that we've got all the good ideas. Yes, we've got this partnership with the horse, and it's like a business partnership. We've got all the good ideas. We want to go trail riding or show jumping, or we want to do dressage, whatever it is we want to do. The horse has all the money. And so in order to get the horse to write us a check for all our good ideas, we have to convince the horse it's a good idea. We have to convince the horse that our idea of going trail riding or doing dressage or show jumping or whatever it is a good idea. And that attitude does make you a really good teacher, because if you spend your time trying to convince the horse that this is fun, because it is fun, then you go in with that attitude and the horse goes, oh, actually, this is quite fun. And it makes it much easier for you to break things down for the horse and reward the horse for all the simple steps that he makes along the way until he actually gets that movement that you want. And I've had Libby, I think, Libby, you're in New Zealand. We've been talking a bit about this. So at the end, I'm going to talk about that as well, because it is a matter of making it fun for your horse, especially in the early stages. And the more you can think about doing that, the easier it is also to engage you. Because if you have a goal, which might be, let's say, you're going out to teach give to the bit, and your goal is to have a nice round horse that's soft in the bridle and does these beautiful transitions with maintaining frame, so on and so forth. Great goal. It's absolutely perfect. It's just what you want as a goal. If you're going out there to explain that to the horse as the best possible teacher you can be, you're going to break that down into little tiny steps for that horse. And it's going to make it so much easier. And you're going to be able to see your end result much better, much more clearly, which is really important. So I want to talk a bit about how you get your horse into the engagement zone. And there are different ways of doing this. I think what we need to remember is that it does require a slight increase in emotional level. So, but it doesn't require a big increase. So anything that people say, oh, to prepare my horse for riding, which is basically what we're talking about, to prepare your horse for riding. So you want your horse in the engagement zone before you jump on, or as soon as you jump on, whenever it is, but before you jump on, you want the horse in the engagement zone. And some people say, oh, lunge it. But you've got to work out what it is they're doing, or what the result is they really want. Do they want to engage the horse with learning? Do they want to get the horse in their bubble of communication? Or do they want to just take the edge off the horse? Do they want to just tire the horse out a little bit because they're not sure, maybe the horse might buck or something? What is their desire really? What are they trying to do? And I think once you hone down on that answer, you'll realize that most of what people do to prepare a horse for riding has more to do with tiring them out a little bit so that they won't misbehave than it does to do with engaging their brain in learning. Now, as a female and not very strong or big or anything, I have to just train this bit of the horse. I'm only really interested in the bit of the horse between the ears. That's what I'm trying to train. I can't push the horse around. I can't force the horse to do anything. I don't want to chase the horse around and make him scared of me. So it's very important to me that I'm always focused on what's going on in his head, not particularly what his feet are doing. So if I can get control of his emotional level and I can get him into my bubble of communication, then I'm going to be safe. Then his energy, then I can direct his energy where I want it to go. I don't want to waste his energy, because horses aren't hugely energetic creatures. A lazy horse is probably a confident horse. Horses that are very forward, you always hear this, oh, my horse is very forward. It's usually scared. So I want the horse to save his energy for my lesson, because it is our most precious commodity. When the horse runs out of energy, then he's tired and we can't train him anymore. Because if we continue to train the horse after he's run out of energy, such as in the Way of the Horse or the Road to the Horse competitions, as horses are exhausted, but they're not actually learning. If they are learning, they're not learning very well, or they're not learning what we really want them to know. So that's very important. So what I did to find out about the best way to engage the horse with learning, I have found over time, I've just found that give to the bit is the simplest way for me. It's easy because it's a very simple exercise, and it seemed to me that got the horse into my bubble of communication, so I could do give to the bit for 5 minutes before I got on the horse, and I could get on and the horse was already in the engagement zone and ready to work, and we were on the same page. So, and I've found that over, the last sort of nearly 20 years. So I wanted to do an experiment that showed that did work. And so I did. And I'm going to take you to that published paper right now. I'll just find that here. Here we are. Yep. Right. So this is the paper. This is an open access paper published in Public Library of Science. So you can look that up if you like. Anyway, this is what it was. So I'll just talk you through the experiment itself and what I did. So I had 100 horses. Now, I divided the horse into two groups, a control group that didn't have any treatment and the treatment group, which I did give to the bit with. So for the give to the bit work, the horse was standing still, no walking, just standing still, and I would pick up pressure on one rein on one side and ask it to give. I'd ask it to give 3 times on one side, and then I'd walk to the other side and I'd pick up that rein and I'd ask for 3 little gives, and that's just the horse to move its head to the side, a few inches. That's all, not very much, just a few inches, and then I'd release it, and then I'd ask it again, a few inches, and then I'd release it. And that was done for 10 minutes. The control horses, the 50 control horses, just stood still for 10 minutes, and I swapped sides. So I'd stand on one side, and then 5 seconds later I'd walk across to the other side and I'd stand there, and then I'd move to the other side, just in case just my moving around the horse like I did with the horse that was doing give to the bit might result in some increase in emotional level with the horse. So that was the treatment and control phase. Then all 100 horses were taken. What they were taught was how to back up through a corridor. That's the passage marked in the photo you can see there. It was a 5-meter corridor. So we've got the video camera down the bottom. The corridor was set up against a fence. So the top line there is actually a fence, and then there's a pole on the ground marking 5 meters. And I'd take the horse up. So let's say his face was at the 1.5 meter upward arrow there. I'd pick up the left rein and back the horse through the corridor using just negative reinforcement. Actually, it wasn't me doing this. It was a handler doing this. I'm not sure if we've got a photo of it. I don't think we do. So just negative reinforcement was used, and that meant that she wasn't allowed to touch the horse other than the rein. She could only pick up the rein. She wasn't allowed to touch the horse. She wasn't allowed to pat the horse. She wasn't allowed to talk to the horse. So all the horse felt was pressure on one rein, not two, just one, and it backed 5 meters. And so we were timing the back up. So from the moment one foot stepped through that corridor to the moment the last foot exited the corridor, that was the time it took the horse to back up 5 meters. We were also videoing, so we had the video camera running the whole time, so we could look at the horse's behavior. Did the horse toss its head or do anything like that? And we had a heart rate monitor on the horse. We actually also had a heart rate monitor on the handler, but didn't use that. But the heart rate monitor on the horse, so we could take its heart rate. So we looked at time, heart rate variability, and we looked at the behavior, so any sort of conflict behaviors or anything. So if we go down to the results here, this is the heart rate. I'll just see if we can make that a bit bigger. Look at that. All right. So the first one we can see that the control group is the very first one that says, oh no, that's the rest. So the control group are red and the treatment group who did give to the bit are blue. The little asterisk over the treatment time shows you that there's a statistical difference. There's a significant difference between the two. So the first 10 minutes rest, the horses just stood there. They all stood there for 10 minutes wearing the heart rate monitor so we could get their baseline levels. And you can see those are just over 40, and there's no significant difference between the two groups. Then when they went into the treatment phase, there is a difference. So the blue horses there were being taught give to the bit, and their heart rate increased, and you can see not much, but there was a significant increase above those horses that just stood there. And then when we went into the lesson, you can see again that the treated horses, the ones that did give to the bit, they went into the lesson with slightly higher heart rates, but not significantly higher. So there were no significant differences at all during the lesson. You can also see there's a downward trend going down. So as they had 8 trials, so 4 on the left and 4 on the right, alternating, but each horse walked through the corridor backwards 8 times. So the heart rates are getting lower and lower each time. Now that's not significant overall, but there is a trend there. And then right at the end, they all then stood for another 10 minutes just tied up with nothing. So you can see a few things really important here, is that the recovery is quite a lot lower than the heart rate at the beginning, but it's not significantly lower. But they're all sort of recovering in the same way. I think the good sign is there that you can see the pattern of the lesson. You have a little introduction there with the treatment, and you increase the emotional level a little bit. Then during the lesson, the horse is in the engagement zone, and then after the lesson, the horse relaxes again, and the emotional level decreases. So that's the sort of picture you want. Whatever you're teaching, that's a good picture. So let's have a look at what else happened. Here we've got, this was quite interesting. It's not really engagement zone, but it is quite interesting, I thought. This is the mean tension, rein tension during treatment, which tells you that I needed more rein tension on the left than on the right. And I find this across the board with horses. And I think what that means is that we handle horses so much on the left rein. I mean, we lead from the left, we mount from the left, we do everything from the left. They're very used to having us on the left. On the right, we don't do much, and a lot of people do no groundwork at all. And so the horse barely gets to see anybody on the right. So when I did this, I found that a lot of horses were quicker to respond to tension on the right because they were not so habituated to it. Picking pressure up on the left rein for them sometimes was meaningful, sometimes wasn't. So they've sort of learned to ignore it. You get a bit of a blanker canvas on the right. But that's something worth thinking about all the time with your horse. It's likely to be different on each side. So this next picture shows us the rein tension during the trials. And again, you needed more. You can see the treatment horses didn't need very much. You need more to actually get the horse to perform, to actually step backwards. And again, that comes into increasing the emotional level with the horse. Here's this was the total rein tension. So there's, I think the last one was the average rein tension needed. And so this was the total rein tension. Again, there's none of the treatment and control groups were significantly different. But what you can see here is the trend going down. So as the lesson progresses, they needed less and less tension. I think for these first couple here that the horses required more. The treatment horses required more because a moment ago they'd just been asked to just move sideways from rein tension, and now we're asking them to move backwards. So I would say that these horses, spend a moment saying, oh, is this right? Aren't I, I'm doing the right thing. And then they realized that the release was actually coming when they took a step backwards. And these even numbers, so 2, 4, 6, and 8, they're the right rein. And so you can see here, the horses are needing a little bit more on the right rein. But as we get to the end, it's evening out. And what was the last thing? Increasing, that was the number of steps. I'll just go for time quickly. This is the time, and this is exactly, again, this is what we expect. We expect that the horse will complete it faster and faster. So the horses, all of them, all 100 horses, are stepping back faster with less rein tension and with slightly lower heart rate. So what that means is we're teaching a really good pattern here. The horses are really picking up the pattern. Now, remember, this is off the right and left rein. So they're actually only getting 4 goes at this pattern off each rein. So 4 left and 4 right. It's not very many, but it's incredible how much faster they are at the end than at the beginning. They've come down to almost half the time, and that's after only 4 trials. So that really is significant that these horses are doing it that much faster, and it's something we need to bear in mind because it's what we're always wanting. We're always wanting to decrease the time it takes. And here you can see again the number of steps taken also decreases. So they're taking larger steps and they're going faster as they go backwards. So they're really learning that pattern. And I think it is interesting that, horses can learn these patterns so quickly. We always used to talk a lot about having so many repetitions with things, but you don't need to repeat things nearly as much as we think we do. So the last thing I wanted to show you here was the probability of the horse tossing its head. Now, horses, tossing your head is a real sign that the horse is uncomfortable, not happy with something. You can see that the control group, so the red one, they didn't have any give to the bit. So they hadn't sort of got ready for the lesson at all. And they just tossed their head significantly more than the treated group did at all. The treated group is interesting. Both groups actually are interesting, but you can see that the treated group was much more likely to toss its head on the right rein than the left. So, that'll be something significant about the right rein and the fact that the right rein hasn't been so desensitized to pressure. But you can see also that the probability was very low that they were going to toss their heads anyway, and significantly lower than the horses that didn't get the give to the bit work. So that does tell us that teaching the horse to give to the bit work or doing something with the horse that prepares it for learning does give the horse a better experience of learning. Right, so I'm going to come back here. Good. So I'm just going to quickly have a look at your comments. Yeah, so Tracy says that when she takes her horses to the arena for training, which is about 150 meters away, but still within sight of their buddies, it seems to give them a slight raise in emotional level, probably a good thing. And absolutely. And what I would suggest you do there, Tracy, is add to that by teaching give to the bit and shoulder control on the way over. Because there's a difference, isn't there, between taking the horse and, some horses, when they do get emotional, have to leave their friends, are like a kite on the end of a string. So the big difference between that and actually taking advantage of that increase in emotional level to direct the feet and to start training. So 150 meters is a good length of space to actually do some really good give to the bit and shoulder control on your way to the arena. And when you get to the arena, you can probably jump on. I think that's a great idea. It's a really good thing to do. Yeah, the URL for the PLOS, I'll just grab that for you and I'll put it in the comments here, Dale. There you go. Yeah, great comment, Tracy. And have a habit of being stronger in my left hand when riding at canter, although I'm right hand. Yeah, it's interesting, the laterality with the riders and the horses, because most riders are more comfortable on their left, and I'm sure that's because we do so much handling with the horse on the left. So most horses go better on the left, or that's what the riders feel. And have a think about that with yourself. Have a think about whether you're more comfortable riding on the left than the right. I would say 80% of people are more comfortable riding on the left. I think it's something really worth noting, because I find when I get new horses, or ride a horse in a lesson or something like that, somebody else's horse, I always find them much better on the right. And I think that's because they are a sort of blanker canvas on the right. They've got less history and less sort of baggage, and they're more likely to respond to what I'm teaching on the right faster than they are on the left. So do be aware of that. And often you'll also find that the horse is great on the right on the long line, great on the left on the long lines, and terrible under saddle. They're quite often different under saddle than they are on the long lines, which is really interesting, and I don't understand that, but I often find that's the case. Kaylee, thank you. Okay, what you're doing is unique. You don't necessarily understand it, but worth the effort. Read the paper I just put up there, Kaylee. It's good, because what it does is, this is why I actually ended up here halfway through my PhD, is because I got so sick of saying, oh, this is what I find. This is what I find. Oh, I think this is right. People would say, oh, no, you have to run your horse around the round pen, or you have to lunge your horse, or you have to do this. You can't just, you've got to take the edge off the horse. So I don't think you do have to. So I wanted to prove it. I wanted to do an experiment where I could say, hey, it's not necessary to put your horse through all this. Hey, you can break your horse in, you can start your horse under saddle without it ever getting into a lather of sweat or exhausting it or making it bark or anything else, It can be done. Good-o. So, look, I just wanted to talk a bit about Libby's horse, and she was doing some give to the bit work, and she was finding that her horse was falling in a lot, and she just wrote to me, and because I wrote to her and I said, look, do the shoulder control work, because if your horse is falling in, then what's happening is you haven't got shoulder control. Give to the bit's great, but really give to the bit is more about the engagement zone, getting the horse in the bubble, than it is about controlling the horse. So we need to get to shoulder control quickly, because what the shoulder control gives you is being able to move the horse left and right off each rein. So let's say you're riding the horse, the left rein should be able to move the left foot to 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock with the horse bent left. So that's what the shoulder control will give you. If you're doing a circle to the left and your horse is falling in, its left front isn't stepping to 11 o'clock where it should be. If you're riding a circle, it's stepping to 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and making the circle smaller. So you don't want to lose that nice left bend you've got on your horse. So what you want to do is be able to just put the rein on the horse's neck and lift that shoulder out, get that horse to step with its left front in front of its right front to 12 o'clock, and just make that circle bigger. So lift its shoulder up, and you can do that off the rein with the shoulder control. So you're quite right to be going there. Then you said an interesting thing, which I loved, which was, what about if I draw lines in the sand in my arena And would that be useful? And that's great. That's a great idea because, you know, in the UK, I used to teach this series of clinics. And the first one was give to the bit. And the second one was shoulder control. And the third one was something else. I can't remember what. But I would say to them after the shoulder control one, because they would every 2 weeks. So I'd say, you go home now for 2 weeks and I'll see you in 2 weeks, and only touch one rein at a time. So you're not allowed to have two reins. You just have one rein. You can ride your horse everywhere you're going to go on one rein. And so they would go and practice their shoulder control. And you can do it. You know, you really can. Your horse gets very good. If you're willing to try it, your horse will get amazing shoulder control in those 2 weeks. But they would all come back and they would say, hey, my horse has stopped shying. I'm like, yeah, your horse is in the engagement zone. You know, your horse is now really thinking about what you want it to do, and it's engaged. So it's waiting for you to cue it to do something. And because you've only got one rein, you're really concentrating on that horse as well. And this is horses shy because they're not in the engagement zone, you know. And that was a big thing that people were saying, my horses stopped shying, and they didn't know why. And you know, people look at it. People look at give to the bit. They go, oh, it's all about dressage and she just wants the horse in frame. And it's not. It's nothing to do with that. It's all about safety. It's all about engaging the horse with learning. It's all about being one with the horse because you're on the same page, because you're thinking about the same thing. You know, we always say horses can only think of one thing at a time. So can we, if we're honest. We just pretend we can multitask, but we can't. We can only think of one thing at a time. So can the horse. And if you just let the horse go off and do its own thing, then it'll be thinking about something that it might want to shy at, rather than thinking about what you, as the rider, who should be in control of the horse's direction and speed, want it to do next. And that's what give to the bit does. That's what it does. It gives you that bubble of communication, which keeps you safe. So when you're thinking you're too nervous to ride your horse outside the arena, or your horse behaves differently outside the arena than it does inside the arena, what's happened is your bubble isn't strong enough. So when you build a bubble of communication, you can take that with you. Build it in a small place. Build it somewhere safe. Start on the ground. Give to the bit. You start building it there. Shoulder control on the ground. Start building it there. Then you get on the horse and ride it in a safe place. The smaller the better. The round pen's better than the arena. But if you don't have a round pen, do it in the arena. Keep yourself by the gate. Keep your area small. And your bubble will get bigger, but it will also get stronger. And the thing is, what you want to do is you want to take that bubble with you and your horse wherever you go. You need a way to engage the horse, whether you're at your own arena, whether you've gone to your friend's place, whether you've arrived at a show. You tack the horse up, you start doing some give to the bit work with it, some groundwork with it, then you get on when your bubble's there. Don't get on before your bubble's there, because your horse, then you haven't got your horse's attention. You get on when your bubble's there. It should, only take you 5 minutes. It might take you 2. It depends on how long you've been building your bubble for, because they'll get stronger over time. And when we're riding, I like the idea of a bubble, because when you're riding your horse, you can see and you can feel the horse in this nice round frame, which fits nicely into the bubble. And then if the horse is cantering along and suddenly, tractor comes past, or being in Australia, a kangaroo jumps through your arena, which happens from time to time, and your horse's ears go, oh, like this, the horse's head goes up, its ears prick, it breaks the bubble. The bubble goes, yep, that's okay. That's okay. You can build it again. But that's an image of the horse, because head elevation is the one thing that will tell you where your horse's emotional level is. If your horse's head goes up and those ears burst that bubble, your horse's emotional level has broken your bubble. And it's a really interesting, it's a really easy way to think about that. And that's okay. You just have to regroup, get your horse back, build your bubble back up, and off you go. Tracy's idea of drawing lines in the sand is a great one. So any of you, because I know you guys are all members of the training that are watching now, go and do to practice your shoulder control, right? What you can do is get off your horse and draw a big pattern in the sand in your arena. So if you've got a nice big arena with sand, great. Draw a great big sort of figure eight or whatever you want, but big curvy lines. Okay, then I want you to get on the horse and I want you to ride it 3 different ways. The first time, ride it having the left hand bit, just the edge of the bit over the line. So when you look down, you can see the line and you can see that the edge of the bit is just on the line. I want you to ride that with 2 reins, whatever, however many reins you need. You know? The second time you ride it, I want you to have the middle of the horse's neck over the line. So just think about that. Think about the line being just under that horse's neck. And I want you to ride that. The third time I want you to ride the same pattern, just with your belly button over the line. So just think about that, the center of you being over the line, okay? Then next Monday, I'm going to come and we'll just have a quick chat about how you got on. So make some notes about how you felt. I want you to work out how easy each one was. So there's 3 of them. So work out which was the easiest, which was the most difficult. I want you to work out which you think was the easiest or most difficult for the horse. And then I want you to think about how much correction you had to give in each one. Did one require more correcting? Did you have to touch the horse's mouth more times with one method than the other? So have a think about those 3 things and come back to me, okay? We'll talk about it at the beginning of the next webinar. Kelly has a question. Off the track has settled a lot, but when I get off, she always puts her head up, ears pricked forward. To me, it always seems like she's proud of what she's done. I'm sure she's proud of what she's done. That's gorgeous. Yeah, that's fun. It might be because she's an off the track. It may be that dismounting has been an interesting experience for her in the past. That sounds a bit like a habit to me. And I've had a couple of off the tracks do something similar. Head goes right up, yeah, when you get off. I think it might be something to do with the jockeys or the track work riders or something. Maybe they get off a bit roughly. I don't know, but I've certainly seen that. But I like your idea. And I'd go with that because I also think that, I think we can overthink things as well. I quite often, when I had a mare once, that chestnut mare, and I didn't think she always was having a great day. And one day I just looked down at her and I said, you know what? I'm really sorry you're not having a great day. I said, I am having a great day. This is like the best day. So you can join me or not. And she decided to. Oh, I felt she decided to. I felt that saying that to her, it changed her. And maybe it didn't. Maybe it just changed me. And maybe I became more engaging and less resentful or something. I don't know. But I do go in with that attitude. Yes, and I would say she's proud of what she's done. I'm going with that. I think that's good. Tracy's written, one thing my horse is doing, so keen to bring her hips to me that she squashes me on the fence or pushes me off the mounting block. Oh, God. Yeah, the overachievers. You've got to love the overachievers. I would say that she's probably emotionally just a little bit high. So she's got it, but maybe her emotional level is just a bit above the engagement zone. So perhaps she was learning it was a bit high. I don't know. I mean, one of the things you can do, I've had horses do that, and what I've done is get a little bit higher or put the mounting block a little bit further forward or something like that. Or you could start teaching it out in the paddock, in the open. So do a little bit more side pass, perhaps. Just you want to bring her emotional level down, give her something she can do and get right, because she's probably doing that quite fast. Because the easy thing to do would be just to reward her when she gets halfway there. but she's probably going too fast. You say she brings her hips to me and squashes me. Yeah, if she's going really fast, you can't do that. So what you can do is practice the side pass, either down the fence or out in the open. If she's really good at it, she'll do it quite easily out in the open. What that will, yeah, she's doing it fast. So what that will do for you, Tracy, is it will give her the feeling that she's still going forward. And it will allow you, because she's not going to be able to race around, it'll allow you to stop her when her hips are still at a 90-degree angle to the fence. And it will also, what it will reinforce with her is that answer's not necessarily right. You know, you probably really need to lower your cue. So if you're still using a whip, drop the whip, go to this. That will usually work. That's usually enough to lower the emotional level. Otherwise, I'd go to side pass. I'd get a side passing down the fence from this, and she's going to, that's quite hard work for her. So she's going to want to less race around to you. And I think the fact that she is racing around to you, check her head elevation, because my guess would be that it's quite high, which is telling you not that she's being a smart ass, that she's just too emotional. Yeah, which again, you know, if you're about to get on, it's not a great thing to have her being that emotional if you're about to get on. So yeah, I think it's something you definitely need to address. And I would start with those three things. So lower your cue pressure wise. She's an off the track thoroughbred. Did you watch the nervous horse one that I've got on inside the training? There's one that I took with a nervous horse. Yeah, so I think, does she also increase her head elevation? I think you're dealing more with an emotional level issue than you are with the fact that she's moving too fast. I think she's moving too fast because she knows the answer. She wants to get it done. That's great. But I think you're going to find that she's got high head elevation as well. So I think you're going to find that she's getting quite emotional. Yeah, she does put her head. Okay, she's getting quite emotional about it, and I think that's what we've got to address. So, you know, decrease the pressure by lowering the amount of pressure you're using for your cue. So get rid of the whip, use the cluck. You really want, before you get on her, you want to make sure that her head isn't high. So you want to make sure that she's in the engagement zone. Yeah, I think that's really important. So I'd go back to the give to the bit and the shoulder control and just start changing things up for her, because horses are so good at patterns, and especially these off the track horses, because they haven't had any patterns. They go, oh, it's a pattern. I get that. I like patterns. I can do patterns, and you reward me for getting it right, and I got it right. And quite often they've never got it right. You know, so we've got to say, hey, you know, you did really well. That was really good. But that was like a really simple step. So let's make it a bit more complicated, and you can still get it right, but you can get lots of things right. And the thing about hips defense is it's easy for us to teach because we can see it. You know, we can see the horse step left. So we're really good at teaching it. And people are really good at teaching. That's why I like to get people to teach it, because you know, it's easy to teach. So yeah, make her think a bit more, because she's got this. She knows this. So get out, do more shoulder work. And I find with the thoroughbreds especially, the shoulder work is really good because it's really new for them. The reins have meant nothing to them. So anyway, let me know how you get on with that, Tracy, as well. But I'm down on 3% battery, so I'm going to leave you guys now, and I look forward to next time hearing about how you got on with that riding exercise and drawing lines in the sand. So to get your horse into the engagement zone, go into the training, start with the give to the bit work, and then move straight onto the shoulder control work. And I also look forward to hearing how you get on with that. I'll see you next week. Bye.